Dryden here from Whitefish, Montana, and I am on Facebook Live doing a video blog about different aspects that come up in coaching. And for those of you who know me, I coach parents who have adolescents and young adults in therapeutic programs. So I come at it from a parent myself, an education background, and over 20 years in therapeutic background or therapeutic programs, looking at family systems and what works and what doesn't work, and then how to coach through some of these patterns, right? So today I want to talk about the patterns that emerge when you're raised by a narcissist. And narcissism is one of the topics that I understand really well and like to coach and address, and it's one of the topics that I've proposed for a TED Talk. So keep your fingers crossed, and let's hope that that is on the agenda for this fall. Patterns that emerge. So let's start with narcissism defined. You know, when we go to the DSM or we go to Psychology Today, it's the inability to see past our own needs, wants, and desires and display empathy to anyone. It's a lack of any cohesive sense of self. So what that really means is that there's this separation between this is me and this is how much I'm willing to let the world in, so that I don't get hurt, so that I don't feel any of the wounds that I carry around inside. And I'm so preoccupied with my own needs and wants and my own covering up and layering of my wounds that I can't see anybody else's, and I have no ability to handle that. So what they do is they use environments sort of in stimuli around them, and they move them around and keep them in order so that things don't get too close. So if that's the working operational definition for narcissism, it's important to know a couple of things. First of all, it's not obvious to anyone when you're dealing with narcissism. And because there's this distance between self and the projected self, they're not really going to seek out therapy or help or want to go explore what's going on. They're going to have a lot of other deeper coping mechanism skills that are going to be really prevalent. And we're going to talk about that. Narcissists are mostly male, although I do think we're seeing a lot more female and, dual marriage narcissism, which is really concerning to me, especially as a family parent emphasis coach. So it's a separation between self and the exterior. And so I want to be really clear here that when you're dealing with a narcissist, what they do is they move things around. Because they have to manipulate. When this comes in, I feel good. When that's over there, I feel bad. They don't think that the rules apply to them because they're so preoccupied that it's kind of like, well, they don't understand. I'm in a hurry, so I'm going to drive fast on the highway, or I'm going to take a left turn where you're not supposed to, or I'm going to cheat on my taxes, or it doesn't matter. Make up any situation where they go, I'm different, I'm special, and I need, the rules don't apply, right? They don't take ownership for any mistakes that they make or responsibility, because when something comes in and they have to be held accountable for it, they push and blame, right? So they don't take responsibility, they push and blame. If you were to say something like, I'm feeling lonely, what the narcissist hears is not your ability to reach through the emotions and connect. What they hear is criticism, which is, you're not making me happy, or I'm lonely because of you. And then they get all defensive and then they retaliate, right? So it's impossible to really have a soulful conversation, especially meaningful. So what that also means is that the narcissist has a really difficult time listening. It's really a listening disorder. I've found some research on that, which makes it kind of interesting. It's the inability to really deeply listen or even be present, right? So when they feel criticized, they criticize others. When all of their defense mechanisms are running on full bore, it's to protect themselves from pain. And they either put people up on a pedestal and idolize them, or they devalue humans all the time, like, you don't matter, I matter. They get easily angered, because when something pushes their buttons, their only real retaliation is anger. And, all of us, I think we have to be really aware of this. All of us, when we go into anger, can be very narcissistic and very triggered. The reason I wanted to sort of do this background on narcissists right now is that what happens when there's a narcissist in a family system, in a parent-co-parent relationship? It means that one person is deflecting and pushing. I got a thumbs up on that one. Here we go. Hold on. Buckle your seatbelts on, because this is when it gets really interesting and difficult when it comes to children. When one person is a narcissist, right, then they're preoccupied with themselves. If they choose a non-narcissist, a sort of an empathic, sensitive, warm-hearted, nice person to partner with, then that person is always the compensatory partner, which means that they're manipulating and observing and trying to keep the peace in the house and trying to manage. So what you have is one or both people who are separated, even though you don't want that to happen, right? So you have the narcissist who has the level out there, but you also have the partner it's so painful to not be able to connect on an emotional level that there's this growing distance where they become even robotic, and they're all about placating and keeping peace in the home and maintaining the narcissistic need. So I've got this lovely breeze going over here, so I hope you can see it and hear it. So one or both parents can be narcissistic, but when one is, it's still a lose-lose for the kid, because the kid either gets to copy and compete what they see at home, or they leave. It's like, what else are their real options? Because when a child is raised in a house, I've got this big piece of paper that's flopping around. The parents are emotionally unavailable. They treat everything on the exterior, so the child is an object. The child is an object that gives them something to do, something to manage, something to take care of. They overshare. Sometimes it's kind of like, well, this object and I, we bond together really well over music, or going to concerts, or going shopping, or going out for coffee, or going on trips. And sometimes there's a personal connection there, but most often it's like really weird oversharing, trying to connect. So the parent that's in a lot of pain isn't exactly healthy either. So there's also, because it's external, there's a focus on appearance, grades, sports, status in school, how many friends your kids have, how do you look? Do you look like you're okay? And so I'm going to speak to a mom scenario for a minute, because that's my experience, right? So the mom is trying to make sure that there's no criticism. So the mom is trying to make sure that the kiddos are doing really well, and that there's a public opinion that their family looks good from the outside. And so everything's about managing the external, the outer appearance. There's this hypervigilance, which is, I have to watch all the details, because if I don't watch all the details, life could get really scary really fast. Because there's explosions, there's control, there's arguments, there's power struggles. And sometimes the parents do that behind closed doors, but if you have a sensitive child, they can feel that in the house at all times. The children they can feel the tension, they can feel everything. So when we have a shutdown parent from narcissism, and we have a shutdown parent from pain, emotional pain and distance, the child has these two blobs parenting them, who care a lot about the external things, but can't reach in and offer an authentic relationship. So, what are the patterns that emerge when a child is struggling to have an authentic relationship with one or both parents? Well, they don't know who they are. They doubt who they are, because they get a lot of accolades for outer behavior, but not anything that tells them who they are or what they believe in. They can't be authentic in the family system without rocking the boat, so they either spend more and more time away from home, or they simply just shut down. They doubt. They doubt themselves. They doubt the scenario that's created. They doubt if it's real, because it doesn't feel real at home, and then it feels real outside of the house, and then it doesn't feel real in the home. There's fear and anxiety. There's a lot of anxiety in kids that come from a house with narcissism present. That makes sense, doesn't it? Hypervigilance, worried, a lack of safety, lack of trust. They're hypervigilant, as I talked about. They're agitated about the family dynamics. they notice that there's this discrepancy between words and action. You know, the words are don't speed, don't drink and drive, don't text, be nice to your brother, be nice to your sister. And then the actions are not even congruent with those words. And so it's like, as a child, which one do I believe, the actions or the words? And then they begin to realize that it doesn't matter. Whatever you say doesn't matter, and whatever you do as actions don't matter. So what we're doing is we're passing this generational wound of narcissism down to our children, because they learn to cover themselves up, like the numbness that's happening in the family system. They don't trust. They don't trust the world. They don't trust adults. They don't trust parents. And they don't trust love, because they don't know what it really looks like. They feel like pawns. You know, they're moved from place to place, which is, hey, if I feel really good, I'm going to take you here. If I don't feel really good, I'm going to blame you for something. And there's no system or pattern, really, that makes sense to the child. So they're just sort of moved around a lot. There's shame and blame, of course, because when a narcissist doesn't want to deal with their own emotions, they blame those around them. They blame them for not meeting the expectation that everything's going to look fine on the outside. There's a lack of emotional security, which is, I don't know what's safe or not safe in my world. Sometimes mom's okay, sometimes mom's not. Sometimes dad's okay when he comes home, sometimes he's not. I don't know where my security comes from. There's this hope. And I think that's the most prevalent pattern I see in narcissistic kids, is that we wouldn't love them if they weren't able to show us who they were every once in a while, whether it's a twinkle or a smile or a moment of laughter. And so children live in hope, like, you know, hey, if I do this, if I'm good enough, if I get good grades, if I make it on the varsity team, and then fill in the blank, I will see my dad smile and twinkle at me. Or I will see my mom warm up and give me a hug. So they live in hope. And what they end up doing is becoming chronic attention seekers, because attention is either good or bad, right? Attention doesn't matter. It's an exchange of energy. So we see a lot of kids acting out because bad attention is the same as good attention. It's just attention. So they become angry attention brokers, moving attention around all the time, manipulating it, resisting being vulnerable to their friends, until somebody sort of steps in and says, hey, there's a pathway out of this family system. There's a pathway out, and it comes through friends. It comes through parents who are healthy of their friends. It comes from therapists or teachers, or, you know, in out-of-home placements. It comes in different places. So there are ways to address these patterns, but the patterns are deep and they're pervasive. And so I was told once by a woman who worked with the narcissistic family all the time that for the child it's a lose if there's a narcissist in the family, and if there's a shutdown partner, it's a lose-lose. So at some point, someone in the family needs to wake up and start being authentic and real, and talking about feelings and heart messages, and like, what does it really mean to be human, and give these children a pathway out of their pain. So this is what I do. I coach all sorts of levels of patterns and issues within the family system, within the parent-child, within the parent-to-parent. If you would like some more information, ask me. Ask me to come talk. Ask me to maybe do TED Talk. Yeah. You can find me on DeniseDrydenCoaching.com, and I hope you have a fabulous Sunday and thought-provoking stuff. Let it sink in. Take care.